Sorry, Derby Day, it always is such a day. The great day in Southern Hemisphere racing. It didn't let us down yesterday. Keith Hillier and Max Presnell, lots of highlights.
Yes, nearly 55,000, one of the best crowds since the war years at Derby Day. Sensational racing, Bruce.
Max?
Yes, no doubt sensational racing. I just wonder, though, whether horses on the fence had a severe advantage.
It certainly looked that way. Well, Rodney Griffiths is with us, who rode the Blevick, the winner of the Derby. Well, it looked like it was the freeway on the rail. If you could get next to the fence or one off, that you were going to win a race. Was that the way the jockeys sorted it out?
And that was the pattern of racing all day, Bruce. So, you know, I think everyone just sort of stuck to that.
But did it feel like by the way, congratulations on a great ride in the Derby. It was terrific.
Thank you.
After being sacked off the horse and coming back, which, you know, showed your determination and your skill. But did it feel different on the rails to you?
It did, you know, the ground seemed to be a lot more superior than anywhere else. So, you know, all the good horses seemed to get there anyway. So.
Rodney, what a merry-go-round of changes. As Bruce said, you were virtually sacked off the horse after Caulfield. Mick Dittman replaced you and won the AAMI bars at Moonee Valley. Then Mick went down with chicken pox and you were forgiven by the stable.
Yes, well, you know, I got very lucky and sort of after the Caulfield Guineas, David said, well, I'm going to give Mick a try and...
What did you say?
I said, oh, well, you know, what do? You cop a sweet. And luckily enough, the horse, things went my way yesterday, you know, when Mick was sick, so.
What did you think yesterday? Maybe we'll have a look at I just felt that you've got to be careful. Jackie Shee made no mistakes at all on Damewin, except a stronger rider at the furlong, a cut across the rump, and I'm sure he might have, well, I think he would have found something. I mean, Blevick was ridden hard by Griffiths, got over the top of him.
Yeah, they were two great rides, but I tend to agree. I think that little vigour towards the end, and we may have well, I'm sure that we would have had a different Derby result.
No, I'm not so sure. I was on Damewin and I thought Che rode a great race throughout the race. The last 30 or 40 metres, well, he's no Mick Dittman, but you knew that when you were going into it. I think that the key to the race was a great ride by Rodney Griffiths, so I'm not taking anything away from Rodney, and certainly
well,
Jackie,
I'm not either, but I'm taking a bit away from Jackie Che, because the last 30 or 40 metres is the most important part of the race, Max.
Oh, Keith, what happens if you're 8 wide all the way and you get to the last 30 or 40 minutes? He rode it a beautiful
Well,
race.
let's have a look. Stony Bay's leading. Dye will have a good long look around at Damewin. He's ridden him in the past. He probably wanted to make sure he was...
That's Damewin on the fence, the red and white hoop cap.
Look at Shane there, left and right.
Yep. So Max is right that Jackie Che had ridden the perfect race.
Rodney, you're sitting on him on Blevick. You'd followed him all the way. You knew that Damewin would suck you into the race. But this was the point. About a furlong to go, we'll get to the distance. Now, Rodney, you don't go for the whip for quite a while on Blevick. Damewin's about to go to the front.
On to him now.
Now he has, but look at the difference in style here. You reckon one across the backside on Damewin wouldn't have made a difference, Max?
Well, you don't know. You don't know that. But up until now, he's ridden the horse to perfection.
But you're stressing up until now.
Up until
no
now.
argument. It's now that it matters.
But he rode it perfectly during the race.
Rodney?
I would love to get on Blevick in a return bout over the same distance, the same barriers and so.
Well, just before
jockeys?
Yep.
Well,
I so like to back Blevick. I said the same. I've got Griffiths on mine and you've got Jackie on yours.
Yeah, well, I'd switch. I backed Damewin yesterday.
Well, Rodney, you were delighted after the race. Jackie Shea wasn't. I heard your report on radio. I was out there and had the tranny, and you were absolutely staggered when you saw this incident. Jackie Shea with Bob Hawke, who's the racing manager, saying that you and Tommy Smith had never seen anything like this on a race course in all your time you've been going.
Yes, Bart Cummings said he'd never seen it. There's Jackie Che embracing and sobbing the former Prime Minister, Bob. I was at a private whaling war myself, but it was a most amazing scene, Bruce.
Well, what was the reason for it?
Well, he was emotive because he'd not won a derby in his homeland, and he went so close to winning one yesterday, and the emotion all caught up with him, and he was being consoled by Bob Hawke. It went on unbelievably long. Every photographer took a shot, and every cameraman took their shots.
What was the jockey's reaction, Rodney?
Oh, no, mine was, I was just excited I won the race, so that's all it really cares.
Yeah, winners laugh, losers please.
That's right.
What do you think of Blevick? I mean, could he be a weight for age horse?
He could mature in the one later on. I think at the moment he's a real tough, genuine staying horse, and you know he's just one of those horses that's copped plenty of work and plenty of racing, and always got a heart to win, a will to win, you know.
We've got a big Melbourne Cup preview coming up later in the program. You've ridden with great success in Ireland. Do you think their horses are better than ours?
Their stayers are trained to be stayers, you know. Some like 4 or 5 months' work goes into them before they even have their first race.
You've also ridden against Vintage Crop in Ireland. What's your opinion of his prospects in the Melbourne Cup, Rodney?
I got a feeling that, you know, this year, 9 stone, what's he carry, 9 stone 8, I think. He's hitting a lot of weight, but it's a lot of weight over 2 mile, and the track's a little bit firmer. I'm just not 100% sure about him this year. You know, I was very confident last year.
How do you read this track for Tuesday? As we said it, there seemed to be an advantage to be on the fence. Do you think that will remain for Melbourne Cup Day, for the Melbourne Cup, if there's no more rain?
Well, you know, it should really, by rights. But I just feel that maybe the better horses were on the fence yesterday, and, you know, sort of...
So we shouldn't take it as a great advantage or disadvantage to be drawn wide.
Max, on that, keep talking about it. Let's have a look at the McKinnon, because there's a very good example here, isn't it? With Paris Lane, Oliver desperate for a rails run on the fence, on the turn, getting chopped off, and then Excited Angel actually being angled to the fence. And I just wondered had Jern or even Rough Havoc, bless his heart, had got the same run on the rail, that might have been a different... Look at Oliver, he just wants the rail, and you'll see Excited Angel want it as well. And Redding and Ten are just getting stuck, basically, and Rough Havoc getting stuck.
This is the win that gives Paris Lane now the chance to do what Rising Fast and Let's Elope did, and that's win the Caulfield Cup, the McKinnon Stakes, and the Melbourne Cup. There's some great runs in this. Top rating was an eye-catcher. But, Bruce, the bottom line is that every runner in the McKinnon had its chance to beat Paris Lane, and none could.
Not everyone. Not every runner. There was one that didn't. Never got into the race.
Gentlemen, I'd like just to put to you, I know Greg Hall at Top Rating was giving Greg a little trouble, was hanging in, but do you think Greg was any more vigorous than Jackie Che in the Derby?
No, he wasn't. Well, Galilean 66.
Yeah, you're getting back a bit there. I thought
You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't. Explain it, please.
Well, idea what you're talking. I think you've had one of your Rough Habit blockages there.
We're waiting. You want to change the subject?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Hey, geez, good horse, Paris Lane.
Isn't he? He's a very good horse, Bruce. And Lee Friedman, after the race, he'll be joining us later too, said, what more can you ask of a horse? The Caulfield Cup, the McKinnon, he's done it all.
He has. Jern, I thought, was a good run. Do you think Jern could win a Melbourne Cup?
No.
No?
No. Won't stay 2 mile.
That's why you're not riding him?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, good. Gee, I wish...
Will Top Rating stay 2 miles in this company, Rod?
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Well, good. I'm just hurrying this along because Pindy's... This was an unbelievable race, the last. Pindy and Starstruck. I mean, I thought Gossip's was an enormous run. It had to be used up and was in the worst part of the track and must come in with some hope. The surprise here with Mark Miller is that, look, without being too critical, he was going to win the race. I mean, and all the things that went on in the last 50 metres didn't have to happen. He's had the race taken off him. I'm sure he had Pindy covered.
Well, that's Pindy the grey in front. This is Mark Miller on Starstruck, the West Australian mare. She had to either win or run second to get into the Melbourne Cup field.
Now, she's got it won here, do you agree?
I do.
Rod, what about the quality of these stayers in comparison with the weight for age race? How do you read it?
Well, it's really it's a hard line to take, Max, because...
Well, just let's look at this for a moment. This is the reason that Mark Miller gets 2 months. His left elbow running into Alf Matthews a couple of times before the line, and the stewards had to rub him out.
This is the steward's head on film. This is what the protest decision was decided on. Yes, I think it speaks for itself there. 2 months for Mark Miller. He apparently intends to appeal.
So, Rodney, continue.
Well, you know, it's silly what he did yesterday. The man was going to win anyway, but, you know, our stayers at the moment are probably really none of them have been tried over the 2 mile, and the one that has Vintage Crop is going to be hard to beat. But, I'm sticking, you know, my tip for the race is I think Paris Lane's going to be very hard to beat.
Gee, he's got a lot of admirers. He's a great horse. Speaking about, I say great horse, he's not a champion. Well, better get that right before we say. This bloke's not a champion either, but gee, he's exciting, a Reba, isn't he?
Oh, he's the best sprinter I've seen since Vane, Bruce. 4 times.
Better than Placid Arc, Scalacci?
Oh, easily so.
Easily so?
Yes, no doubt. He's had 4 trips to Flemington, 4 wins.
Could you forget quickly?
No, I don't. I've got a good memory.
What about the Lightning Stakes, the Oakley Plate and the Newmarket? Aren't they and the Galaxy? Aren't they the 4 big races in Australia?
Gentlemen, he is an outstanding horse. I don't think he's quite got there yet, but I think he's got the potential.
Go on, Keith.
This was the best sprint field lined up at Flemington in any race for ages. Now, he beats the inside horses, where it seemed to be a bit slower there. The outside brigade finished in the minor placings. He beat them by 4 lengths. Had he drawn the outside, he would have won by 8.
Well, 5. It's very good. Rodney,
Rodney, I'll throw 3 in.
Don't go away, Keith. Come back. We're going to argue some more. The Melbourne. Rodney, good on you. Congratulations. Terrific win. And thanks for being so forthright today, and good luck on Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
Galilee's year?
66, yeah. A break. Kate after this. And Melbourne Cup preview, Dermot World, Lee Friedman, David Hayes, Bart Cummings shortly.
Tonight. Time on the outside, Vintage Crop on the outside, grabs the Arconic and Mercator, and the Cup is going back to England. And Vintage Crop has won the Melbourne Cup by 3 lengths to the Arconic. Well, the Cup went back to Ireland last year with Vintage Crop winning, and if he wins again on Tuesday, I'm sure they'll tear the grandstand down. Do you agree with me, Keith Hillier and Max Presley? It'll be one of the great moments in Australian and world racing.
It will be fabulous, and I think he can do it, but I'm waiting on Dermot Wells' report of the test given Vintage Crop this morning. This was the big test, his first serious gallop since the much publicised mishap that happened at Sandown last week.
Well, let's introduce Dermot along with Lee Friedman and David Hayes and Bart Cummings. What a lineup we have. It was said in the room a moment ago, can I meet, one of our friends said, could I meet the greatest trainer in the world? And I looked at the 4 of them and I wasn't too sure who he wanted to meet. But Lee Friedman stepped forward and shook the bloke's hand.
Never shy.
Dermot, tell us, great to see you again. And I do admire the way you've handled yourself this week with all the pressure you've been under. We talked about that at the big lunch on Friday. But how is Vintage Crop? We'll see in a moment how he injured himself on Tuesday and his work this morning. Tell us all about him.
Well, he worked well this morning. I was pleased with the way he went. He worked about a mile, and that was the part that pleased me. The problem was that there's a lot of swelling there, there's a lot of oedema, and what's happening, as you can see, the swelling is going down his leg. It's going down gradually, and it's causing his own problems. We have to do a lot of walking with him. He's getting a lot of ice, and we're hopeful. That's all I'd say at this stage.
When will you make a decision about running?
Tuesday morning.
On Tuesday morning?
Yeah.
Dermot, you're hopeful of racing. What are the odds about him winning, and what is his weight compared to what it was last year?
His weight is about the same as it was last year. He certainly suffered a fair bit of stress and pain with the accident. He's lost 2 kilos. He hasn't put it on. But he's a very good horse. He's a very tough horse. And this year there's definitely an unknown factor.
After the mishap, you said that there was a 50-50 chance of Vintage Crop running. Then the odds increased. There was a 90% chance or better. Is it really back to 50-50 now?
Yeah, it's back to 50-50 because I'm not giving the horse a chance to heal naturally. And what's happening is that as I exercise the horse, there's little bits of fluid developing, there's bruising developing there. It's moving down his leg and it's causing me problems. So he was not as good today as he was 2 days ago.
Cleveland Gale, can we ask you about?
Yeah, she didn't ship quite as good as I'd hoped. She's a good mare, and I think she can run a place. But she doesn't compare with Vintage Crop. If I can get Vintage Crop right, he'll run a very big race.
What about Quick Ransom? You've had a good chance to see his performance. Yeah. He looks well weighted. He's the English raider.
He's very well in. I meet him much worse here in Australia than I would in England. He's a good horse, and he'll be in the finish.
I'd just like to, I guess, generally ask Lee, David and Bart. I mean, it seems incomparable from our point of view to understand how a horse can't... Since September 9, it's been Quick Ransom, almost as long for Vintage Crop. How can they do it? I mean, you wouldn't dare not run since Craigley Stakes Day one of your horses, would you?
Go on, Bart.
Go on, Bart. You've won 9 of them. You've won only 9 of them.
If I had Vintage Crop, I mightn't have to.
But you were pretty severe last year on the weight that Vintage Crop was given. Do you think he's been fairly weighted this year?
Well, Dermot mentioned that he was lost 7 kilos. I think he lost it with the handicapper's room when they first started.
But what about that first question? I mean, it's such a difference, isn't it, between our training methods and the way Dermot's been able to produce this horse?
Well, in England they have these magnificent gallops rising over a period of 1.5 miles or dogleg 1.5 miles, and the Downs and Newmarket, and also in Ireland, the Corra. And we've got a circular, boring type of circular training track to give them the same exercise on a big open, the Downs, with a rise of 50 or 100 feet in a mile gallop, the horses would become jaded on a flat circular track to give them the same exercise. So we're forced to race them to get the same measure of fitness that you can get on the downs in 2 or 3 gallops with 4 or 5 other horses as companions. That can't be done in Australia on a circular track. So there's much to be said for a private training track. As Lindsay Park has got a rise in the gallops and the private training, but they still have to bring them here and race them pretty much as we do on Randwick or Flemington.
Great for Australian racing, do you think, Lee, David and Bart, that we have these horses here?
Providing they don't win too often, it's great.
He's got to catch up. He's got another 8 to catch up to you, Bart. David, top rating. Yesterday, a very good run in the McKinnon, running on very well at the end. What about his run in the Moonee Valley Cup? Because I think both Max and Keith were critical of the fact that there was no time run that day, but Paris Lane did run the second slowest McKinnon for 30 years yesterday, I might remind them. How do you assess that performance in the Moonee Valley Cup?
I thought it was outstanding because the horse raced against his trend of racing. He likes to sit back with the pace on. He brought them up to the field this day, and you know, he couldn't have won easier. I was a bit concerned that he won a little bit too easy. I was anxious to give him a bit harder hit out. Damien eased him down the last furlong here.
And David, would you say he had that hard hit out yesterday in the McKinnon?
Max, he was laying in a little bit, and Greg couldn't pull him out. The instructions were to ride him cold, then send him home hard the last 3 furlongs. And I think if he could have got him to the outside, he would have been right in the finish.
So any gear change for Tuesday?
Yes, we're going for the one-eye blinker and the ring bit, so...
Worked for Blevick yesterday?
Yeah, well, I'm just hoping it works for this horse Tuesday.
But you mentioned at a breakfast earlier this week, you felt that if Top Rating had run in the Caulfield Cup, you'd have a better chance than not having run. In fact, you said he'd be a near certainty. You believe missing the Caulfield Cup could be a factor?
I think if you run the Caulfield Cup, then just take it easy up the McKinnon Stakes. The horses do improve, and without having to subject him that hard strain the week before. And it may be proved wrong because I thought Top Rating's run yesterday, McKinnon Stakes, was a terrific run.
What about the Caulfield Cup, Lee? It's been the best guide, I guess, over the years. I mean, Bart's always used it successfully in his great wins. Paris Lane this year has gone on with the job yesterday, but his Caulfield Cup was the one that really catapulted him into Melbourne Cup fame, didn't it?
Yeah, well, it was run in the course record pace, and that's I think that's significant. It was run in a very fast time, and I tend to agree with Bart. He gets it right more often than not, that running in the Caulfield Cup and then having that 2 weeks break before the Melbourne Cup is very good for the horse. And we've noticed this horse has improved quite a lot since the Caulfield Cup, and his coat's come right, which it hadn't been beforehand. And he'll go in as
Lee, and yesterday shows the versatility of Paris Lane. He can win in course record time, or he can win in, as Bruce pointed out, the slowest McKinnon for 30 years.
Yeah, well, look, that's true, and it's interesting. A lot of people have been worried about the horse settling in the longer race. Well, I think probably that race was run maybe slower than the Cup will be run on Tuesday.
Barrier a worry for you? You would have preferred an inside draw, whereas Top Rating will probably get back a bit further than Paris Lane.
Yeah, I don't know. From that Melbourne Cup start, you've got such a long run in, and I mean, sometimes inside gates can be a disadvantage with a horse that has to be up there because you've got to use them so much to hold their position. They've almost got to lead for part of the straight to hold their position. So...
What about Gossips yesterday, Bart? He had to be used up and he got into the wrong part of the track, which was 5 or 6 off the fence. It looked a very good run in the Crown Quality. There were some other good runs, obviously Starstruck and Pindy, a good solid effort. Gossips won a St Ledger. Is he classy enough to win a Melbourne Cup?
Well, on the surface, he can stay, that's all I can say, whether he's up to quality and class or not. But yesterday was a very game run. He was off the track all the way, went pretty early, far too early, I thought. Hit the front on turning for home and still hung on there right to the end. But he'll have a better run on Tuesday. Have you
won a Melbourne Cup with a horse that you would have the same degree of confidence with Gossips? Obviously with Galilee and a couple of others you would have been super confident. With this horse you give it half a hope. Have you won Melbourne Cups when you're giving horses half a hope?
Can't think of one.
David had Coachwood, who was the third place getter in the Crown Quality yesterday, and he's in the Cup field, giving you 3 runners, David. Has he got a roughish chance?
I think he has. He's got 48.5 kilos, and it's a handicap. Shane Dye rode Jeune. I thought he was a shade unlucky yesterday, and Shane elected to ride this horse ahead of Jeune. So that you know, he's a pretty good judge on his day, Shane, and he'll tell you too.
David, just trying to match the Crown quality with the McKinnon, the class of horse. Do you think that the class of horse in that event, Coach Wood's race, is as good as the McKinnon horses, your own top rating? And
no, I prefer the McKinnon form personally. I think they're the best horses, and but they're weighted like good horses too. Top ratings in well though.
Can we mention Alcove? It hasn't been mentioned.
I think we should, because she's got a very good chance, Alcove.
Could we run through about Alcove's chances?
Excellent, good chance.
The danger.
Yeah, I'd say it's one of the biggest dangers to us.
Dermot, you've seen Alcove?
I have, yes, definitely a major danger.
You've seen a bit of our race. You've been here for a week.
Yeah.
You were at the Cox Plate, I believe, and,
Yes,
and certainly, who are the best horses, do you think, to beat for Vintage Crop to beat?
I thought last week it had to be Alcove and Top Rating, but I think Paris Lane is the horse I've got to beat.
I want to ask you also, Dermot, about what weight you put on the history of this Melbourne Cup. Only 2 8-year-olds have won the race in 133 years. Both of your runners are of that age.
That doesn't really worry me.
Doesn't it?
There's a bit of difference between a British 8-year-old and an Australian 8-year-old, I'd just say, from the racing's point of view. But Bart Cummings has won a Melbourne Cup with a 4-year-old mare. Getting back to Alcove, how would you compare Alcove with Let's Elope and Light Fingers? They were just about down and out champions.
I think Let's Elope probably superior to both of those horses, and Light Fingers was a little bit ahead of Alcove.
Well, not, and she had an interrupted preparation when she won, so she might be the one. Let's look at the market. Top Rating and Paris Lane are the equal favourites. It's David Hayes and Lee Freedman, and Vintage Crop is the 3rd favourite on the 2nd line. So we've got the men in here, and Bart's got the 6th favourite with Gossips, with Quick Ransom and Alcove in between them.
This will come to the crunch on Cup Eve at the Racing, Pacing and Chasing Expo, where the Calcutta, where the Call of the Card will be done live and in public for the first time, Bruce.
Keith, give us your tips.
Well, mine's Vintage Crop. I'm stuck with Vintage Crop all along, and sorry about the setback that Dermot's had, but I'm staying with Vintage Crop. Quick Ransom for a Northern Hemisphere Quinella. Popped you in for 3rd, Lee, with Paris Lane.
Max?
Paris Lane on top to beat Alcove and Top Rating, and the tip is get the camera on to Dermot Weld as we go off the air, because if he's smiling, they say get on to Vintage Crop.
Well, I think David Hayes will win his first Melbourne Cup. Top Rating, got the weight. He's had a terrific run on Saturday, great run in there, and I think Alcove and Starstruck are the danger. Sorry, Lee, and sorry, Bart, and sorry, Dermot. I've let you all down. Gentlemen, it's the greatest day in Australian sport, in my opinion. It'll be one heck of a race. It's a tremendous lineup. Thanks for coming in, and we wish you well.
Thank you.
Keith and Max, will see you at the track, eh?
We'll see you there on Tuesday, and if you love racing, you should be there yourself.
After the break, the Superbikes.